Right.
Well, folks, let's ring that bell and get started. So I'm going to share my screen. There it is. I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, I'm still a little out of it for the jet lag. So we're going to ring the bell. All righty. And now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Jan, could I have you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm going to sit and do it. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And
and
to
to the republic for
which
which it
stands
one
one
nation,
nation under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you. And last, but by no means least, we have the four-way test. And Lee, if I could ask you to lead us in the four-way test, since this is actually from Lansing, Michigan, where I got this image. So it's kind of near you. Yeah.
North, 4 hours north, 4 hours north. The four-way, go to the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
is it
Fair.
fair to all concerned?
Good.
Will it build
Will it build goodwill and better
friendships?
Fourth,
Will it be
Will
beneficial?
it be beneficial to all concerned?
number 5, most important.
Have
Have
fun.
fun.
Yay. Okay, thank you. And thank you again for humoring me on that. I just think it makes the meeting a little more fun and interesting. We have Nicole, who has joined us. She's going to be our speaker coming up in a little bit. But welcome, everyone. Hey, Waylon, we see you just joined us. Welcome. So first, any announcements from members? Ted.
We're going to have a Rotary float in the Pride Parade on June 5th. It's a Saturday morning, and it's quite different this year. It will be stationary floats along Rice Street, so more sort of displays. And then there'll be a single lane that people can do a drive-by to observe this stationary parade. So we have a big Rotary banner with the LGBT Fellowship logo on it, rainbow border all around it. It's the banner that was used in the Honolulu Pride Parade in 2019. And we'll have a bunch of other rainbow decorations and stuff and rainbow flags to wave. So anybody who's interested, it's open to anybody. We just want to have a presence for Rotary to be seen and be visible as a diverse and inclusive organization. So anybody who would like to participate, please let me know. We'll be happy to have you come wave a flag and wave at people driving by in the parade.
One of the other differences this year for the parade is that we're not allowed to give anything out. We're not, people give out candy and things like that. We're not able to do that due to COVID. But yeah, we'll have some fun doing it, and it'll be interesting because it's just going to be different, and we'll see how it goes.
And there will be some folks from one or two of the other Kauai Rotary clubs also.
Yeah, this is a Kauai district event. We're calling it that. But yeah, let Ted know, and we can get you set up for information. Do you know where we're going to be? I mean, obviously on Rice Street, but do you know where on Rice?
No, we have to submit our float information by tomorrow, and then
okay.
they'll be assigning us a spot.
Okay, cool. So yes, that's next Saturday, the 5th. I feel like there was something else I wanted to tell you all about, and now it's escaping me. We have the International Convention coming up the following week. If anyone wants to sign up for that, I know last year we played up the idea of signing up for the International Convention. Obviously, it was supposed to be in Honolulu last year. We had a lot of people who were going to physically go, and for many of those people, it would have been your first convention. And this year supposed to be in Taipei. Obviously, we're not traveling to Taipei. So again, an encouragement to sign up. And the really cool thing about it is that this is a way that you can get to an international convention, probably the cheapest you're ever going to do it, because there are no flights that you need in order to get on board with that. Everything is scheduled around Central Time because, of course, that's where Rotary's headquartered outside of Chicago. So everything's centered around that, but the events are all recorded. And having gone to a couple of the international conventions, I can tell you that it's a great way to see a much bigger and broader picture of what Rotary does. It can be easy here to look at what we do on the island, what we get done here. And certainly, I mean, like with Craig, with the school and some of the other stuff that he's done with going out into the different areas that he's gone to. We have some international presence here, but it's really cool to see what's going on in the greater world. And in parts of the world, Rotarians do things like build entire hospitals, which is kind of astounding when you think about it. But you get to hear about a lot of those stories. So that's definitely something to look at. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still a little out of it. I don't think I have any other announcements. Let's do some happy bucks though. Does anyone have anything they're happy about? Feel free to be happy. Feel free. Well, I'll be happy. I'll be $5 happy because earlier this month, over Mother's Day, I got to go see my parents, which I hadn't seen them in more than a year. And it was really kind of nice to go and see them. I was there for Mother's Day. And then it turned out the day after Mother's Day was my dad's birthday. So I was there for both of those, which was really kind of special. And it's nice to see travel opening up a little bit. And then after that, I was up in New England for a while and got a chance to obviously hang out there and do some stuff, but also we have some neighbors in the condo that we have up there that they're just sweet people. And I got a chance to also chat with them and get all caught up and everything. So it was really kind of nice to be able to do that. And even more importantly, I made it back home. So that's always a good thing too. Yeah, anyone else happy? Greg, be happy.
I'm happy. Gonna be away from meetings for the next month, but part of that time we're gonna be visiting our first exchange student, Rotary exchange student, Annika Krzyzowski, who's from Hungary. And she was at our home 22 years ago. And she now has a 15-year-old daughter, and she's in Evansville, Indiana, Southern Indiana. So it'll be nice seeing her and her family.
That's really cool that you get to see someone and that she's grown up and has kids of her own.
Yeah,
like she was probably 15 or 16 or so when you met
she's
her.
a social worker. She's bought her own home as a single mom. So very proud of her.
Yeah, that's great. Congrats. That'll be fun. Happy. Who else happy? Come on, somebody be happy. Okay, everyone's sad. Yeah, okay. Well, Nicole,
I'll be.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I'll be happy for a couple things. One, our Rotary District Conference went very well. Even though we had to be online, they tried something new with this app called Huva, and people really got into it. There was lots of interaction and people posting topics, and so there was a lot of offline. Well, it was online, but offline, non-real-time communication with Rotary people from all over the state, and then lots of good speakers during the conference too that were very inspirational. And then my other happy is that I get to go off the rock also in June for a couple of weeks for the first time in a long time. So it's good to be able to travel again.
It is nice. Tom, you look happy.
Can you hear me all right? Because I'm using
Yeah.
a speaker here. Okay. It's my beautiful wife's Mary's. It is her 60th birthday today.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Mary.
birthday.
So big day. And at the same time, my mother-in-law who's purchased a condo here on Kauai to come in every 3 months or so, is here for the first time, obviously in a year and a half. And Mary's very happy with that as well. So as am I. So it's good to see my my mother-in-law, and happy birthday, Mary.
There you go. Yeah. Happy birthday to Mary from all of us. All right. No one else happy? Just looking. Okay. Well, Nicole, I'm going to turn things over to you a little earlier than we thought, but that's okay, because we can fill the time. So Nicole is the executive director at the Humane Society here on Kauai. And I know many of us have pets. Many of us have gotten our fur children from the Humane Society, including us. Our little Epo cat came from the Humane Society. And I still remember the day we walked into the kitten room, and I was like, I want a kitten that's got some spunk. And we got one. She's got spunk, that's for darn sure. And she was in the cage with two of her brothers. And while all the other cats were sleeping, these three were just like tumbling over each other. And we brought her off into the little room, and she climbed on us and everything. And I was like, this one has to come home with us. And she's so much fun, and she's so sweet. And I got home Monday afternoon. And so yesterday morning I was up early, and I was up early for work. And after a work call, I just kind of stretched out on the bed, and she came in and she just laid on my chest and was purring away because she was so happy. And that kind of love is so special and sweet. So I really happy that you guys are here. So Nicole, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen, because it's
Okay.
it's not an animal presentation if there's no animal photos, right? So yep, I'm Nicole Shafer-Crane from the Kauai Humane Society, and I wanted to talk about some of our services and programs today, just because we've been making huge strides, and we're able now and for quite a few months now to have a live release rate of over 90%, which means that 90% of the animals that come into our shelter have a positive outcome. So that technically makes us a no-kill shelter. And we've really been averaging closer to about 95% live release rate. So we're really excited. But the only reason this is possible is because of our services and programs. So, obligated, I need to talk about my pets. So I have a three-legged cat named Poseidon that I got in Louisiana. She has no idea that she has a missing leg. She has a imaginary fourth leg that she likes to use all the time, and she's very stoic, very brave. She takes on the world. She's our little killer, and so she loves going out for walks and everything like that, either in her backpack or on her leash. And then my dog, who is becoming a senior this year, is from Saipan, and she is very much a cat. And my cat is very much a dog, so I kind of evened out either way. And she's a big sweetheart, and she's very sensitive, and she's very sweet. And then the cat in the corner is actually my foster kitten that we just adopted out. This was Nugget. Nugget had come to this shelter after having a negative run-in with a vehicle, and we had to amputate her leg and her tail. And so she was with me during recovery. But yep, she also has no idea that she has this disability. She just tends to not jump. She climbs instead, but she's making lots of new cat friends at her new house. So I'm really excited for her. So what can we do for you and your pet? We offer quite a few services. So we have our low-cost spay and neuters, and these can start at $25. Like, that's what we mean by low cost. Our low-cost vaccines are around $15. which is pretty in line with Petco's low-cost vaccine clinic. We kind of go back and forth depending on what vaccine you want. And then our microchipping is $20. This is really important because today at 1, the mayor is going to be signing into law the new microchipping ordinance. And so this was presented by Kauai Humane Society and the Department of Finance as a joint legislation. And we're really excited about it because metal tags will become a thing of the past. They were already a bit of an archaic practice just because it requires renewal. They're pretty faulty because they fall off all the time. They don't really stand up to our tropical and salty environment very well. So they weren't really a good option, and we're sort of failing at their premise of being a way to reunite owners with their lost pets. Whereas microchipping, we're not going to go through that. It's a quick injection. It's like getting a vaccine, so they can't lose it. All the information's there. We're helping people register their microchips because that's the most important thing, as well as keeping it in our database as well. And so I think it's going to be a much more effective way of reuniting, and it's also going to drop the cost as well, because we definitely don't want the fees of having to redeem your animal to be a hurdle to get your animal back. And then besides that, we have our flea treatments that start at about $15. We have our huge dog parks, small and large, that we're looking at renovating hopefully sometime this year or next year. And we're offering day passes with those. And then we have our cat collar exchange. So the kitten in the picture all the way at the bottom of the corner, that's Tim. And Tim came to us with his collar wrapped underneath his arm, his front leg. And unfortunately, it was so severe, it required the amputation of that arm. And it was a really big learning curve for our staff because, you know, it's just not something people were really thinking of. Most people don't collar their cats, but if you are going to do it, it's really important you do a breakaway. And then we actually just had another cat come in with the exact same injury because of an incorrect collar. So if you bring us a cat collar that's not a breakaway, we'll exchange it for free, or we'll sell breakaway collars for $5. I know people get frustrated because breakaway collars will pop off, but that's the whole point though, is cats can get in some very interesting positions. And if they can't get unstuck, things like this can happen, which is far more severe than losing a collar. So that's a program that we're offering. We also have our pet boarding for dogs and cats, and of course our end of life services. It's not something people like to think about for ourselves or for our pets, but it's something that we try to do very compassionately because we understand it's very difficult to say goodbye to your best friend. And so we have a pretty quick turnaround on cremations. We offer these really beautiful urns, and we're starting with keepsake photo frames of like nose prints and things like that. So we're trying to help bring closure when your pets pass. And so that's another service we're sort of ramping up even more. Now, besides direct pet owners, we also offer services for our community, and these have been really instrumental, especially in the time of COVID, as people are going through a variety of hardships. So our pet food pantry has been around for a while. It's called the Gomez Galley. And with the flooding up north and the homeless camps or the houseless camps that have been spread across, as well as people that just need assistance with their pet food, we've given out thousands of pounds of dog and cat food this year. When we delivered some up north, which is what the pickup truck being loaded up for, we even threw in like chicken feed and stuff like that. We tried to cover all the bases, and we worked with other organizations to get that distributed. So we work right now with the food pantry out of the shelter, but we're expanding to Nana's house on the west side because transportation is quite a hurdle to get the resources you need. So our pet food pantry is expanding, and it's funded by grants and then just donations, which is what makes it so successful. The next is our houseless or low-income vaccine clinics. These are different than the other one because we go off-site to do these. So we performed 2 clinics at Lidgate, one at Salt Pond and one at Lucy Wright for the houseless community. We were able to offer a variety of vaccines, microchips, flea preventative, collars, leashes, towels, pet waste bags, just about everything. And we had an amazing experience, and we were so glad we could help. There were quite a few puppies, so it was really good to get them, on that first good step in life. And now with the parks sort of dispersing, we're looking at transitioning to low-income apartments. A lot of the apartments have pets, but in order to keep your lease and to keep your pet, your animal has to be fully vaccinated. So we're going to try to do visits to the apartments and help them so they don't have to risk getting evicted or losing their pets because of that. So that's our next step. Cat clinics. So we've been offering these almost every other month and offering 2 or 3 a month. So these are spay neuter clinics specifically for cats. And you can pretty much bring whatever cat you want. It can be a community cat. It can be your cat. We don't really, look into that. It doesn't matter to us. We just want to fix cats. And so we've been offering that at no cost. And we have 2 coming up actually in June on the 10th and the 24th. I think the 24th is also like World Cat Domination Day. So even more important to minimize the cat population, because they would take over if they could, if they're anything like my cat. And so we're offering that, and we're hoping to continue. We've also partnered with KCCP on some of these as well, where their buses come to our parking lot to do their clinics. And we've actually given them hundreds of cat collars as well to give out to people that bring their cats in, because they definitely get some creative cat collars on the animals that they see. So we're trying to help them out as much as we can. We're doing support services for pet retention, and this is a variety of things. So this could be dog houses, leashes, collars, tethers, any kind of medical care as much as we're capable of doing, because our goal is really to keep pets and their owners together. Most of them are in really good families, and so it's much easier for us to help them stay together than to find a whole new family, as well as it's very traumatic for everyone involved to separate a pet and their owner. And then of course we have our animal control services. So we pick up stray dogs, dogs and cats that are injured or in distress. We do cruelty and neglect cases. We do enforcement, so leash law violations, licensing, all of that. But yeah, our focus is dogs and cats for the most part. If there's livestock issues or wildlife, that goes through KPD or DNLR, depending on which one it is. And then we have an office cat program, and this benefits us as well as the office. So animals in the office decrease stress. They make a very calming environment. They're great kind of marketing. Most people that visit offices with cats like it. So clientele increases, as well as staff enjoys their time at the office. So it's sort of a foster program. So our animals get to get out of the shelter, enjoy meeting new people and being in a less stressful environment. And then office staff gets to enjoy having a furry coworker. And then we do emergency boarding. So this could be anything if your residence goes through a fire or a flood, if the owner has a medical emergency and can't care for them. And then we also do this for domestic violence victims. And another one of our projects coming up is we're looking at building a specific area for victims of domestic violence, where they can board their animals, but also have an area to interact with their animals where they're not seen by the public and even the staff. So they can have their intimate moments with their pets and just kind of degas and take however long they need. And we're working with the YWCA on some of that grant funding. Because currently our emergency boarding is for about 10 days. And the YWCA's program for domestic violence victims runs for about 90 days. So we're trying to increase so we can match. So they're not having to worry about one way or the other, because the shelters here don't particularly take in animals. And as we know, sometimes animals can be the reasons people stay in situations that they shouldn't be in. And then finally, our direct release and quarantine. So since most of you guys have pets, I'm sure at some point maybe you used us. So if you're ever coming to Kauai, you'll utilize us, or if you're going to land in another island before hopping over, we'll assist you with getting your animal through the quarantine process and off the flight and checked out, so you guys can get out of the airport as quickly as possible. So this is not really services that we offered, but it seems to be the big question that everybody always asks me at some point or another is, what are we doing about our feral cats? And it's something that I always feel bad, because everyone's always looking for a solution, and there isn't a true solution. There are steps. So first off, a feral cat is what we would call a free roaming cat that doesn't have an owner. So these are cats that, aren't going to be microchipped because they don't have anyone that they belong to. They don't particularly like the company of people. So they're usually the ones that run off or just freeze in fear. And these guys do the worst in shelters. So as of October of last year, we stopped taking in feral cats. The shelter did. The reasoning behind this was when a feral cat was brought in, they were immediately euthanized. The issue with this is it's not really fair to the cats, and it doesn't actually benefit our island. And I'll explain why in a second. So we reassessed and we discussed with the county and with each other, and it's just not in the philosophy of the Humane Society to only be able to offer one outcome option to an animal, especially a negative one. You shouldn't enter a Humane Society and go, yep, it's an immediate euthanasia. You should be able to go give positive outcome options, and we weren't able to provide that. So we decided this was not an avenue we were going to take. So on our website, you'll see ways to humanely deter cats from coming onto your property if there are issues, and other ways that you can resolve these outside of us. What we do think is a solution is to no longer sort of take these single avenue approaches to feral cats. So, there's trapping and euthanasia practices that take place on the island, or other forms of extermination. And that's the only practice that's taking place. We've been doing that for decades on this island, and we still have a lot of feral cats. So I think that in itself shows that that's not the best solution. So if we approach our situation like an ecosystem and agree that it's multi-pronged, there's a lot of things we need to do, I think we would be more successful. So the big step is actually spay and neuter. This can be done through clinics and TNR. So first off, this is going to decrease our population because it's no longer going to increase. And since it can't increase, and cats do have a lifeline, the population will eventually decrease. This is going to happen in a year. This is a long-term situation, but when we're dealing with ecosystems, we really need to think long-term. Another concern people have is toxoplasmosis for birds and for our marine life. And that's another way to decrease that is through spay and neuter. So toxoplasmosis is mainly in kittens, actually. So once a cat eats uncooked meat, whether this is the pork you give it at home or a rat, they'll go through about a 2-week cycle of toxoplasmosis, and then they pretty much never get it again. They can't spread it anymore. It's done. And so most of our adult cats, we could probably say all of our adult cats on the island, are no longer capable of spreading toxoplasmosis. Our toxoplasmosis spread comes from kittens. And so the best way to not have toxoplasmosis is to not have kittens. And that can only be achieved through spay and neuter options. So with this, then we need to look at predator fencing. One of the things that we're seeing is sometimes it's called a vacuum effect, or kind of a take on a boom bust population, is the issue with going in and removing cats is you get more cats back. And let me explain this. So if you've got a couple cats and they're in a location for a reason. There's food, there's shelter, there's things that are drawing them to that location. When you remove the cats, but you don't do anything about the resources, now you have more resources available. So these other cats move in, And because they're not battling the cats that were there previously, there's way more food, there's way more resources. So your population's actually going to increase more than what was there before. So instead of you having 3 cats, you're going to have 9 cats now. And so that's one of the big things. It's actually best to leave cats there because it's going to keep your population from increasing. And that's the big argument for TNR is if you don't want more cats, then leave the cats alone, unless you can move that resource. And what we're seeing around a lot of our places where we have a lot of cats is their transfer stations, their hotels, their camps, their urban areas where there's lots of food and there's lots of resources. And if we can't remove the food and resources, we're not doing anything by removing those cats. And so if you want to do that, then you need to start talking about predator fencing. So fence transfer stations so cats can't get into them in areas like that where there's these really big resources that you don't want the cats to take advantage of. And that's why there's fencing, around areas where we've got nesting birds and things like that on this island. Mainly, it helps with some cats. There's not a lot of cats in the area, but there are a lot of rodents and things like that, which is another thing to keep in mind is if we remove a lot of cats, we potentially could have quite a boom in the rodent population, and the rodents love eggs. And so it's actually going to hinder our wildlife population probably even more. With that cause, so Kauai Animal Welfare Society is in the process of building a cat sanctuary, and we're looking at one on our site as well. And this is not to take all the cats on the island. We can't build a cat sanctuary big enough, unfortunately. But what we can do is go into areas that birds and other wildlife are very sensitive and are seeing cats, and we can remove those and then look at predator fencing for that. And so that's a much more smaller population that we can work with. And then of course, we constantly promote indoor cats. We want them to be inside a home, not just for our wildlife, but we've got a lot of cars. We've got stray dogs, and there's a lot of dangers out there for cats. So just being inside is a lot safer. Like my cat personally loves being outside, but she's always going to be on a leash or she's going to be in a catio because I don't want her to get hurt either. My neighbor has 3 dogs, I'm not going to risk it. And then of course, education is a really big step, and just letting people understand this. It's very hard sometimes for people that are frustrated with the cats in their neighborhood. And so that's why we talk about humane deterrence and stuff like that. But really, by taking that cat away, you may very well get a way worse cat moving in. The one that just happens to walk past your neighborhood and not mind you any business, leave that one alone. The one that's clawing up your convertible top and leaving paw prints and digging out your flower beds, that's one we can work on, deterring out and keeping away. So it's kind of, like the feral that you got kind of situation. And so this is not a short-term plan. This is not going to resolve absolutely everything. Nothing really will, in my opinion. But I think this is a much better approach, and it's approaches we're trying to commit to and promote and get other organizations online with, is instead of taking these sort of single action methods to really look far more at these multi-pronged things where we're doing several things at once, not one and then 2 and then 3, because it just doesn't work like that in an ecosystem. There's far too many things going on, and there's far too many things contributing to our cat population. And so how can you help, and how can our community help with this? So of course there's adopting. We've lowered our adoption fees because once again, we don't want finances to be a hurdle. This especially comes to our senior animals. So our senior animals cost $25. And that's because we understand that as animals get older, their medical costs most likely go up. And we much rather have you invest in their care than spend money on us. And so that's why we've lowered our adoption fees so much. Fostering is huge. We're in kitten season right now. We already have over 100 kittens in foster care, and they require a lot of work, especially our bottle babies that need to be fed every couple of hours. So if you are not a 8-hour sound sleeper and you get up through the night, this would be the best thing to do, is get up and then enjoy some fur time and then, go back to bed and have a nap or whatnot. So fostering is really big. It's I also really promote it with families with kids because it really teaches a lot of empathy and understanding to kind of the biological world and growth. Volunteering is huge, and you can volunteer with your kids and your grandkids. There's always activities. We have one that likes to come read to our animals, or they help walk dogs or help with cats and do some socialization. Spreading the word is also really important. Just letting people know what our services are. We're trying more and more to spread, our word across the island. We've noticed we're not getting a lot of customers or clients from the west side or the very north side. I contribute that pretty much more to distance, but as well as some transportation hurdles. So we're looking at how can we get to them. But we also know that not everybody listens to the radio, not everybody reads the paper, not everyone's, cruising the internet. And so sometimes the best way to tell people that there are services available to help them with their animals is to hear it from their neighbor. And so just letting people know is a big deal. Almost all of our information can be found on our social media and website page. And we're growing those daily, and they usually have, way more cute, adorable photos to look at and lovely, happy stories. We like to keep everything really positive when we can. And then shopping at Bloomingdale's, that's our thrift store. You can also donate items there as well that we can do resale on. And then our field trips. This program took quite a hit during COVID, but is finally back up and moving. And we've got a great variety of dogs, and it's just a really nice way to pretty much have an excuse to go to the beach or go on a hike or go try a new coffee shop or something like that, is to take a new fur pal with you to go on a field trip. And then our events. We try to have events on a pretty regular basis. So today is actually Heat Awareness Day. And so if you came to our dog park today, you're going to see sprinklers and doggy pools and ice treats, because we definitely want to bring people to our shelter as well as help raise awareness on certain things. We're obviously a fairly warm island, so heat awareness is pretty important. And so, we're going to do whole events around it. And this week, every time someone adopts a dog, they get a cooling towel and a water bottle and supplies to help curb the heat. Jimmy's, that's going to be taking place on June 19th, is hosting a big fundraiser for us. And there's going to be amazing raffles or lucky draw items, like paddle boards and guitars and stuff like that were donated from Tito's Vodka. And they're going to do like coolest dog trick competitions and stuff like that. It should be a really active, fun time to just kind of chill and get some special KHS Tito mixed drink cocktail. I don't know what they're making, but apparently they're putting a signature drink together, as well as just getting some, good food, and the other food trucks will be there too, so you have a variety. We have our critter camp going again this year. We're going to do 2 weeks, so June 28th to July 2nd, and then July 5th through 9th. We're going to do it for ages 8 to 13, and we have a elementary school teacher that's running it, so she's absolutely amazing, and it's going to be, all things animals. And then, of course, our Pause for Celebration is our big annual fundraiser. We're going to do a hybrid this year. So we're pretty excited because I think it's just going to give us a much bigger audience, and it's going to let us show off a lot more things when, you're kind of confined to a single room. Here, with film and video, we can show you parts of the shelter. We can show you things that have happened. We can talk to people that are, on the mainland or elsewhere. So I think it will give a much grander view of what we do during the year. And so I think that will help people understand what we're trying to accomplish and what we're hoping to accomplish. With this, we are looking at expanding our current facilities. We're increasing our medical care. We're trying to double our surgical units so we can do more spay and neuters. Improve our cat housing, because right now most of our cat housing was actually for small dogs, has been converted. So we're trying to kind of move it into, what's more practice and that allows for more vertical space, because that's really important to cats. And so there's just a lot of really good things coming down the pipeline that we're very excited about. But of course, it can only be accomplished with our community. And so, yeah, I figured there were probably going to be more questions, so I think I kept it a little bit shorter. But thank you all so much for having me.
Thanks, Nicole. Sorry, I was there looking at the mama cat.
Oh, yes.
I was distracted.
No, so 3 of these are hers and 1 is adopted.
Oh, so sweet. I will say, we started coming to Kauai years ago through, we'd bought a timeshare here, and we're still on the timeshare Facebook page. And the field trip process is huge there. People just think it's so awesome that we offer that. And I mean, I can understand, because you miss your doggy and you want to take a dog out, and it's kind of cool. And of course, on the Facebook page, I've seen that there are people who have taken a dog out on a field trip and then have taken a dog all the way back home.
Yes.
So that's also a very good thing. Yeah. Questions for anyone? Yeah. Jace, everyone. We'll go with Tom first, because he's to the left of Jan.
Well, that's kind of depends on which square anyway.
Well, that's the way I'm looking.
I want to thank you very much for coming on. It's amazing the number of programs that you put together, and how it's expanded. I will just say that we actually had the first 2 cats in the quarantine facility, because back then, this was almost 20 years ago, you had to quarantine on Oahu in what amounted to be Guantanamo. And they had to separate the cats. We had 2 cats, and they wouldn't allow them to be together. And it was just a horror show, to be quite frank. But we got to halfway through, we got to bring the cats over because they finally got approved. And that facility was just total game changer, to where our cat had gone on a hunger strike for 2 weeks.
Oh.
And then came here, and all of a sudden to normal. Anyway, and they lived to 19 years, both of them. So it was really quite impressive. So I really did want to thank you for that. And also the cat that you just saw go by here is also, whose name was Monroe. How could we not? Is just an amazing person and amazing cat. See, listen to me, person. Huh? Anyway, I had a question in there somewhere, and now I've lost it. But again, just thank you very much for all the hard work and all the improvements that have been made at the Humane Society. It's clear you've really done some outstanding work. So,
Thank you.
Mostly just applause.
Tom, if you think of your question, we'll come back to you. But Jan, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Nicole, 2 things. One is, recently I read, and maybe you mentioned this, I missed it, that Kauai Humane Society is a no-kill shelter. Can you explain that?
Yes. So to be a no-kill shelter, or to use that term, to be 100% honest, it's a marketing term. I'm not particularly a fan of it, because I think it gets misrepresented a lot. But what it does mean is that your live release rate, so the amount of animals that come in and leave, is over 90%, and that you do not euthanize for space or time. So really the only animals that are not getting a positive outcome are those that have behavioral concerns. So for public safety issues, they cannot be placed back out into the community, or they have severe medical issues. And those are really the only 2 reasons, if you're at that status, that you would euthanize. And so with that, we're at about 95%. A good example of a medical issue that we're working with right now is we have a dog named Nori, and she has what's called wobbly knees. So she's got 2 back legs. Both of the patellars are not where they're supposed to be, and it's about a $4,000 surgery. So most places would be, that's just not what we can do, and she would potentially not have a positive outcome. And I would not fault any shelters in that situation because it's very difficult. What we have been able to do, and it's taken us a long time, and the only way we were able to accomplish this is because we can get our animals out at a very decent pace, is hold on to her for a few months to pretty much scour the mainland for a rescue that could potentially hold on to her and provide a foster, because it's going to be about an 8-week recovery. And next week, we're going to start fundraising to help that rescue pay for her surgery. And they're going to fundraise on their side. And so we were able to form this partnership where we can afford the surgery for Nori and get her there where she can have the proper treatment instead of us having to bring a specialist in to do this. And that's just one of those extra capabilities we can do with this status and with all these programs, is because we're not filling up. We're not at this overcapacity where we'd have to look at Nori and go, you know what, just time, effort, medical expense, all of this is not within our, range. We can now go, actually, we can put her in our foster temporarily. We can find these solutions for her and we can give her a positive outcome. And so that's one of the many reasons we've been able to do that. And so, yep, any shelter that has a live release rate of over 90% gets to use that term no kill.
Thank you. So second question, early on your slide, you mentioned something about a cat collar exchange.
Yes.
Explain that.
Yeah, so a good population, and even the staff, how to go through this education as well, is cats require a different collar than dogs. Most people think a collar is just a collar, and they still make collars for cats that are not breakaway. And so that's even more misleading to the consumer. But what it is it's a snap that has rounded edges instead of a square one like you'd see on a dog collar. So if you were to push on the collar, it would pop open. And this is because cats can at times get their paws underneath their collar. And so if it doesn't have the pop, they get stuck. And you'll get these wounds that will cut into the cat's armpits. Whereas with a breakaway, it'll pop and it'll keep their appendages safe. This also happens because we know cats get in squirrely situations sometimes, like in between chain link fences and tree branches and limbs and stuff like that. And it's another safety measure. If they get stuck, instead of them twisting their body and hurting themselves even more, the collar will break and they'll be able to be released. Yeah.
Greg, go for it.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
I'm a veterinarian here on the island, and I want to welcome you to our community. But I got a question. Is the Humane Society going to be involved with this Greater Good charities for the group? It's a mainland charity that's sponsoring 3 MASH type spay neuters for island cats, and they're talking about 15,000 cats being done through the year. And first of all, are there that many cats to spay and neuter, and are you joining them?
Yeah, so we've been in communication with them for a few months now, prepping for their trip. So it's Greater Good Charities, and the program is, it's called Good Fix, and it's being led by Tara Lawler, who did the 50,000 spay neuter program in Puerto Rico, where they were doing 500 canine spay and neuters every day. And they had like a 0.01% mortality rate. So it was an amazing program that they put together that they're going to try to do in Kauai for cats. They said 15,000. And the issue with this is nobody knows. It's been really hard because the surveys that were done previously were kind of skewed, and they actually tell of a higher number than that. It's hard to get surveys from people on cat populations and ownerships because we do have quite a few, we would call colony caregivers for cats, but it's kind of like a taboo word here. People are very uncomfortable talking about the community cats that they care for. And we even get that at the shelter where someone will come in and been like, oh, I feed these 2 cats. I'm like, okay. And you get talking to them and they're like, well, really, there's 7 more. And so I feel that the numbers get skewed a lot because people are uncomfortable talking about the neighborhood cats that they care for. And so there potentially could be 15,000. We understand, and they do as well, that logistically trapping that many cats is going to be very difficult because of our terrain and the amounts of canopy cover and ground cover that we have. They do have 2 professional trappers that this is what their job is. They're coming out of California. They've been trapping cats all along the islands on the East Coast. They're very good at what they do. And so whatever gets trapped will get fixed. And it's not just for that, but it's also anyone that has owned cats can come in and get their cats fixed. Anyone that has community cats or anything like that. So really, it's a huge spay-neuter initiative, running these MASH clinics. And with that, they didn't want to leave the dogs out either. And so they're going to be offering vouchers so people can take their dogs to the vets on the islands, give them that option. So that way, you know, they're not fixing everything, and the veterinarians can also be part of this process. So they're going to be here for the week of the June 21st, and they're going to be meeting with so many people. But yeah, we've been, I'm really excited to see them because you know, like I said, we're struggling in kitten season. And so if they can prevent future kitten seasons, I'm going to be completely grateful. So it's not a partnership program though, it is completely their program. We're just helping wherever we can, kind of setting up meetings and stakeholders, but we're really excited about them coming, and they're coming in with a really open mind. And so that whole week is about them, you know, talking with vets and officials and stuff like that to figure out what's the best way they can run this program.
Thank you.
Thomas.
Yeah, so first of all, I do want to say that when I was a concierge at the Hyatt, the field trip was extremely popular. I had probably 1 or 2 people come up to us at the concierge desk inquiring about it, and trying to work out, I guess, the details too. That was probably always the fuzziest part for us, was to how to get them in touch and get things scheduled for them. So, I mean, I think there's something there, but the other half of that, the other question I had was about the taking the animals off island, the program where we're shipping animals off island. And I'd heard during the pandemic that the shelters on the mainland had run out of animals, and we were sending them in droves off the island, which is fantastic. But did you talk about that program much? I'm sorry, I missed it. There was so much that you talked about, and that I think maybe I missed it. But could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, you didn't miss it. I didn't spend much time on our transfer program. Yeah, it's really interesting how shelters are sort of across the mainland. So I worked at a shelter in California, and I worked at shelters in the Southeast. And the Southeast is never out of animals, but they pretty much give everyone else animals. And then it comes down to what you're looking for. So like California, the shelter I was at always had like 50 chihuahuas in it. But you went up to Washington and nobody had chihuahuas. So we would send all of our chihuahuas up to Washington. So it's just really interesting. It's the same, like Georgia had a ton of labs. New Hampshire always wanted labs, but didn't have labs. So we would send all of our labs up to New Hampshire, you know. So it's really interesting how you kind of, you know, work people's like interests and needs across the mainland. So during COVID, yeah, lots of shelters were emptying out just because fostering really boomed, as well as adoptions, because people were finally like, you know, I am at home. I can take that time, you know, with a puppy and get it trained up instead of me trying to train it on my weekends when I'm not at work. You know, it's very stressful. Our issue during COVID was we didn't have any flights leaving the island. And so the most we could do was maybe like 3 at a time. And then when we started opening up a little bit more, we could only send so many animals, but if someone had their animal on the flight, we would lose our space. So we were extremely limited. Right now with flights going back and forth a little bit more, we're able to get more. So we actually have 21 cats leaving on Thursday, which is really exciting because we haven't been able to send that many in a year and a half. Now we did do the big flight. So was it Paws Across the Pacific, where we sent just shy of 300 animals to the mainland. And that flight started in Kauai and then island hopped to pick up animals across the other Hawaiian islands, and then finally went to the Pacific coast and sort of unloaded across several shelters. And so that was our big flight. And that's what helped us, because when I came on, our population was probably at like 200, 300% capacity. It was way more because we didn't have these outlets for flights. And so that helped us kind of clear and get back into a better position. Now that flights are moving, it's a little bit easier. But yeah, we try to send, at least 2 to 3 flights a week. If we can get more, we can. It's just, depends on if they can pick up on the other end. But we've got really great rescue partners that we're able to work with, and volunteers on the Pacific coast that will go to the airport and pick up the animal and drive it maybe an hour to the rescue for us. So it's a program that is really big, and we're very successful with it, but it is very flight dependent. That's pretty much our limiting factor. Besides sometimes.
I'm sorry, but it used to be that you would get volunteers, like we had gone to Seattle, so we could get we would take accompany an animal to the mainland. But it sounds like it's a broader program than that now, to where in fact, do you even do that or require that or request that of getting people to actually accompany animals?
So we do
across and so on.
Yeah, we do it for some of our adoption animals, because one of our limitations is they are only allowed 1 layover. They can never have more than 1 layover. So if we have someone in Ohio, there's no direct flight to Ohio. And so that's when we would utilize someone to accompany them that can help them when there's these changeovers or these layovers, so they can get across. We're thinking of expanding back to doing that for rescues. I think the reason it kind of paused for a little while is there was some disappointment that the rescues picking up weren't as timely as they should have been, for people that were like, I can take it, but I have like a 2-hour layover, so I need to get to you and then get on my next flight. So I know that was kind of causing some issues. And so we're looking at bringing it back. We just really need to make sure the people on the other end are 100% on time, because we definitely don't want to make it an inconvenience for those that are helping us out.
All right, folks, it's coming up to our time and I want to be mindful. So thank you so much, Nicole. I agree. We learned a lot about the programs that you guys have put together and everything. So that's wonderful. And I'm glad to hear that we're keeping our pets around, because that's always good.
One real quick question.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicole. I just want to say I ran a shelter in Wisconsin for several years, and I've heard nothing but great things about you and what's been changing. I'm a dog trainer here on island, and I've heard amazing things. I just had lunch with a friend, another dog trainer, and all praise. If you ever need help as far as large animal, I'm the president of the Kauai Humane Society as well. I'm a rancher. If you need anything with horses or cattle, please reach out. And if you need help with anything, any support, I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much, Waylon. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thanks. And by the way, Greater Good, the charity that Craig mentioned, they had reached out to us, I think it was last year, to see if we could help them find a facility, because they actually set up in non-normal places to do these surgeries, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's something that we can also help out, and certainly volunteering at the Humane Society is always an option. But thank you so much, Nicole, and we really appreciate everything that you guys do. It's been great, and we will talk to you all again June 5th, Pride Parade. June 15th is our next meeting. Thanks, everyone. Cheerios.
Uh,